echoes in the void. Sub-Commander Cathara of the HFY 3rd Reconnaissance Fleet had seen many strange things in her 40 cycles of service, but nothing had prepared her for the sight that now filled her command screens. Floating in the absolute darkness of the Kepler void, where no star had shone for billions of years, lay what could only be described as an armada. "Distance?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. 7,000 kilometers, and closing. Sub-Commander, replied her sensor operator, tentacles trembling slightly over the controls. "I'm reading by the ancient seas. I'm reading 347 distinct signatures." Cathara's 4 eyes widened in disbelief. 300 ships was larger than most civilizations' entire space forces combined. Her own reconnaissance fleet consisted of merely 6 vessels, and they were considered a substantial patrol force by HFY standards. "What species?" she demanded, though something in the pit of her primary stomach already suggested she knew the answer. "The configuration? It's human, Sub-Commander, all of them." The bridge fell silent, except for the soft humming of life support systems. Every member of the crew knew what that meant. Humans hadn't been seen in civilized space for nearly a standard century. Their colonies had gone dark overnight. Their trade ships had simply stopped arriving at ports, and their massive exploration fleets had vanished without a trace. The galaxy had been trying to solve the mystery of humanity's disappearance for generations. "Are they ... active?" Cathara asked, studying the tactical display. The ships hung in space in perfect formation, a complex 3-dimensional lattice that spoke of military precision and strategic thinking. Negative life signs, Sub-Commander. No power signatures, no electromagnetic emissions, no thermal readings above background cosmic radiation. They appear to be completely dead. Yet something about the formation troubled her. Dead ships didn't maintain perfect positioning. Gravitational forces, solar winds, even microscopic debris should have caused some drift over time. These vessels sat in their positions as if held by invisible hands. "How long have they been here?" she asked. Her science officer, a young HFY named Valonth, worked frantically at his station. Based on the cosmic dust accumulation and the decay rate of their hull materials, approximately 100 standard years. Commander, maybe a few years more or less. 100 years. Right around the time of humanity's great silence. "Take us closer," Cathara ordered, "but maintain defensive posture. If these ships are some kind of trap." As they approached, the true scale of the human vessels became apparent. Each ship was massive, easily 3 times the length of Cathara's flagship. Their design was unmistakably human, functional, angular, with none of the artistic flourishes that other species incorporated into their vessels. These were warships built for one purpose: combat. Sub-Commander called her communications officer. "I'm detecting some kind of interference. Every time I try to scan the interior of those ships, the signal just ... stops. It's not being blocked or deflected. It's like the scans just cease to exist." "What do you mean?" "I mean the scanning beam enters the hull and then there's nothing. No reflection, no absorption reading, no indication that the scan ever existed. It's impossible." Cathara felt her primary heart skip as she studied the nearest human vessel. Its hull was pristine, showing no signs of the wear that should accumulate over a century in space. No micrometeorite impacts, no radiation scoring, no thermal stress. Fractures. It looked as if it had been constructed yesterday. "Try to hail them," she ordered. The communications officer's membranes fluttered nervously. "No response on any frequency, Sub-Commander. But there's something else. I'm picking up trace electromagnetic signatures that suggest the communication. Arrays are intact and functional. They're just not responding. The implication sent chills through Cathara's spine. Ships that appeared dead but maintained perfect formation. Hulls that showed no aging after a century in space. Communication. Systems that worked but remained silent. This wasn't abandonment. This was something else entirely. Sir, Velanth's voice cracked with excitement and terror. I'm getting readings from the long-range array. There are more fleets out there. Dozens of them. Defined dozens. I'm detecting similar formations in 11 other sectors, each one positioned at major hyperspace junction points or strategic bottlenecks. Sub-Commander, if these readings are accurate, there are thousands of human ships scattered across the galaxy, all in the same condition, all in the same perfect formations. Cathara stared at the tactical display, her mind racing. Thousands of ships positioned at every major strategic point in the galaxy. It wasn't random placement. It was a defensive grid. But defending against what? Get me a priority channel to Fleet Command, she ordered. This information needs to reach the Admiralty immediately. Hours later, Admiral Zethman's holographic image flickered to life in Cathara's ready room. The old HFY's expression was grim, his ceremonial battle scars seeming deeper in the blue light of the projector. Sub-Commander, your report has caused quite a stir in the capital. We've been in contact with our intelligence networks, and it seems you're not the only one to make this discovery. The Caraxian Empire found a similar fleet 3 days ago. The hegemony of Veltar reported another yesterday. Even the usually secretive Umbral Collective has reached out through back channels. Sir, are you saying? I'm saying that every major civilization in this galaxy has discovered human ghost fleets in their territory, Sub-Commander. All positioned strategically, all apparently dead, all maintaining impossible formations. The Admiral paused, his secondary eyes focusing on something off-screen. There's something else. Our best xenarchaeologists have been studying historical records from the time of humanity's disappearance. They found something ... disturbing. Cathara waited, her claws unconsciously flexing. 103 years ago, human ambassadors visited every major capital in the galaxy. Their message was consistent across all civilizations. Something was coming from outside our galaxy, something that had already consumed 3 neighboring galaxy clusters. They requested permission to position defensive fleets at strategic locations, and every government refused. Humans were newcomers to galactic politics, barely 3 centuries since their first FTL flight. No one took their warnings seriously. Most assumed it was some kind of power play, an attempt to justify military expansion. The implications hit Cathara like a gravitational wave, so they positioned the fleets anyway. It appears so. And then, exactly 100 years ago, they vanished. Every human colony evacuated overnight. Every human ship recalled. Every human citizen disappeared without a trace. Admiral Zethman leaned forward. Sub-Commander, what if they didn't abandon us? What if they're still out there, waiting? Before Cathara could respond, alarms began blaring throughout her ship. Her sensor operator's voice crackled over the intercom. Sub-Commander to the bridge immediately. The human ships... they're changing. Cathara rushed to the bridge, Admiral Zethman's hologram flickering alongside her. On the main screen, the massive human fleet hung in space exactly as before, but something was different. The hulls, which had appeared pristine moments before, now showed signs of age and wear that hadn't been there before. Report, she barked. It started 30 seconds ago, her science officer stammered. The ships are aging, but but backwards. Hull damage is disappearing. Structural stress is reversing. It's like we're watching a century of entropy undoing itself. On the screen, scratches vanished from armored plating. Dents smoothed themselves out. Entire sections of hull that showed microscopic wear suddenly gleamed like new metal. The impossible was happening before their eyes. "Sub-Commander," her communications officer called out, voice shaking, "I'm detecting power signatures from the human fleet. Minimal, but they're there, and they're growing." Admiral Zethman's hologram flickered as the transmission struggled to maintain coherence. "Sub-Commander, we're getting similar reports from all our contacts. Every human fleet across the galaxy is showing the same phenomenon. Whatever's happening, it's synchronized." Kethera stared at the main screen, watching as the human ships seemed to shed decades of apparent age in minutes. A terrible thought occurred to her. "Science officer, run a chronometer analysis on those ships. I want to know if they're actually aging backwards or if we're seeing something else." Minutes passed as Valenth worked frantically at his instruments. When he looked up, his face had gone pale blue with fear. "Sub-Commander, the readings are impossible. According to our instruments, those ships aren't aging backwards. They're becoming unstuck from time. The chronometer readings are fluctuating wildly. Sometimes the ships register as having been here for centuries, sometimes for minutes, sometimes—" He paused, checking his readings again. "Sometimes they register as being here in the future." The bridge fell silent except for the increasing tempo of various alert signals. On the screen, the human fleet continued its impossible transformation. Ships that had appeared dead for a century slowly coming back to life. "Sir," the communications officer whispered, "I'm detecting movement from the lead vessel. They're turning toward us." As if responding to her words, the massive human flagship began a slow, graceful rotation. Its weapon ports, which had been sealed and dark, began to iris open. Not in a threatening manner, but like a great beast awakening from slumber and stretching its limbs. "Should we withdraw, Sub-Commander?" asked her tactical officer. Kethera studied the human ship, now fully oriented toward their position. She thought about the warnings humanity had given a century ago. Warnings that had been ignored by every civilization in the galaxy. She thought about the strategic positioning of the fleets, the perfect formations maintained across impossible time periods, the synchronized awakening happening across the entire galaxy. "No," she said finally, "I think we're about to get some answers, and I have a feeling we're going to need them." On the screen, more human ships began to orient themselves, their formations shifting for the first time in a century. Power readings climbed steadily across the entire fleet. Whatever had kept these ships in their century-long vigil was coming to an end. The waiting, it seemed, was almost over. The Watchers wake the emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called for the first time in 2 centuries. Representatives from 12 major civilizations filled the ancient amphitheater on the neutral world of Consensus Prime, their various forms of anxiety and fear creating a palpable tension in the recycled air. Ambassador Krelth of the HFY took her position at the central podium, her 4 eyes scanning the assembled delegates. Beside her, holographic displays showed identical scenes from across the galaxy. Human fleets, no longer dead, beginning to show signs of life after a century of silence. "Honored delegates," she began, her voice carrying the formal tones required. By council protocol, we convene today because of events that challenge our understanding of reality itself. 3 days ago, our reconnaissance forces discovered what we initially believed to be derelict human vessels. We now know better. The Caraxian delegate, a massive crystalline being whose thoughts manifested as colored light patterns within his transparent body, pulsed deep red. The hegemony has confirmed similar discoveries in our territory. 17 fleets, positioned at every major hyperspace nexus between our worlds and the galactic rim. They are no longer dormant. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. The Velt representative, whose species communicated through pheromone release, filled the air with the chemical equivalent of profound unease. Our deep space monitors have detected synchronized power-ups across all human fleets. Whatever is happening, it spans the entire galaxy. Ambassador Krelt H gestured to the central display, which showed a tactical map of the galaxy. Thousands of red dots appeared, each representing a human fleet position. The pattern was unmistakable, a perfect defensive grid covering every approach from extragalactic space. Our combined intelligence services have uncovered something that puts these discoveries in a new context, she announced. 103 years ago, human diplomatic missions visited every capital world in this assembly. They brought warnings of an approaching threat from beyond our galaxy. They requested permission to establish defensive positions. The Collective's representative, a shifting shadow that spoke with the voices of thousands, whispered in unison. We remember. Our archives record the human ambassador's words. Something comes that has already devoured 3 neighboring galaxies. It cannot be reasoned with, cannot be bargained with. It only consumes. We deemed their claims unsubstantiated, as did. We all admitted the hegemony delegate, his metallic voice carrying harmonics of regret. Humanity was young, aggressive, prone to seeing threats where none existed. We refused their requests for military positioning. They positioned the fleets anyway, Krelth continued. And then, exactly 100 years ago, they vanished. Every human world evacuated, every ship recalled, every citizen disappeared without explanation. We assumed they had abandoned us, perhaps fled to another galaxy. The display changed, showing long-range sensor data from the galactic rim. At the very edge of detection range, massive signatures were approaching, objects larger than solar systems, moving with purpose through the void between galaxies. We were wrong, Krell said quietly. They didn't abandon us. They've been standing guard. A new voice cut through the assembly, transmitted from deep space. It was human, speaking the ancient galactic common tongue with an accent that had been absent from the galaxy for a century. Galactic Council. This is Admiral Sarah Chen, commanding the Terran Defense Fleet, Eternal Vigil. We are transmitting on all frequencies to all civilizations. After 100 years of watching and waiting, we regret to inform you that our long-range sensors have confirmed approach of the entities we warned you about a century ago. The entire council chamber fell silent. On the displays, the lead human ship in the nearest fleet had become fully active, its running lights creating new constellations in the darkness. The entities call themselves the Devourers, though they are not biological in any sense we understand. They are ancient machine consciousnesses that have existed since the early universe, consuming entire galaxies to fuel their expansion. They move from galaxy to galaxy, stripping away all matter, all energy, all information, leaving behind only empty void. The Caraxian delegate's crystalline form flashed urgent yellow. How, ... How have you been watching for a century? Our sensors, Show your fleets have been dormant, powerless. Admiral Chen's voice carried a note of what might have been amusement. Temporal stasis fields, combined with quantum consciousness storage. Our bodies have been in suspended animation while our minds remained active in quantum substrates, monitoring long-range sensors and maintaining fleet positions. We've been very much awake, just displaced from normal time flow. The implications staggered the assembled delegates. An entire species had voluntarily exiled themselves from normal existence to stand guard over civilizations that had rejected their warnings. Why? Asked the Veltarian delegate, chemical confusion mixing with his words. Why sacrifice yourselves for those who refuse to listen? Because someone had to, Admiral Chen replied simply. The Devourers consumed the Andromeda Galaxy 3 million years ago. They finished with the Magellanic systems 500,000 years ago. We've been tracking their approach for centuries. This galaxy, our galaxy, is next. New data flooded the displays, showing the true scale of the approaching threat. The objects at the galactic rim weren't ships. They were mobile harvesting platforms the size of star systems, accompanied by countless smaller constructs. The entire assembly was a machine swarm that dwarfed anything in their combined databases. Our projections indicate they will reach the outer rim systems in approximately 6 standard months, Admiral Chen continued. They will begin harvesting operations immediately, converting all matter into additional harvesting platforms. Based on their previous consumption patterns, they will strip this galaxy clean within 50 years. The shadow form of the Umbral Collective writhed in distress. What can be done? How do we fight entities that consume entire galaxies? We fight, came the simple reply. Human fleets have been preparing for this engagement for a century. Our weapons have been designed specifically to disrupt their quantum matrices. Our tactics have been developed through extensive simulation of their previous campaigns. But we cannot do this alone. Ambassador Krelt H. found her voice. What do you need from us? Everything, Admiral Chen replied. Every ship, every weapon, every scientific mind you can contribute. The Devourers are not invincible, but they are incredibly powerful. They've succeeded for billions of years because they've never faced unified galactic resistance. Divided civilizations are easy prey. United, we might have a chance. Around the chamber, delegates began to stir. Ancient rivalries and territorial disputes suddenly seemed petty in the face of galactic extinction. The hegemony delegate was the first to respond. The hegemony pledges its full military support to this defense. The Caraxian Empire will contribute all available resources. The Umbral Collective offers our knowledge of quantum warfare. One by one, every major civilization committed to the fight. For the first time in galactic history, every species would stand together against a common threat. There's something else you need to know, Admiral Chen's voice carried across the chamber. As the pledges concluded, the reason we're awakening now, after a century of waiting, is because we've detected something unexpected. The Devourers aren't just harvesting galaxies randomly. They're searching for something. Our long-range quantum sensors have detected focused scanning beams probing ahead of their main fleet. Searching for what? Krelt H. asked. We don't know. But whatever it is, they believe it's in this galaxy. And they're willing to accelerate their timeline to find it, even if it means leaving entire star systems unharvested in their wake. The implications sent chills through every delegate. The Devourers, ancient beyond measure and methodical in their consumption, were breaking their own patterns. Something in their galaxy was important enough to change the behavior of entities that had remained constant for millions of years. Admiral Krelth asked, "When will you begin moving your fleets into attack positions?" For the first time, there was a pause before the human officer responded. When her voice returned, it carried a note of grim satisfaction. "We're not moving into attack positions, Ambassador. We've been in attack positions for a century. Every human fleet is already positioned at optimal engagement coordinates. We've been waiting for this moment for 100 years. Across the galaxy, human warships that had hung silent in the void began to power up their engines. Weapons systems that had been dormant for a century came online. Temporal stasis fields collapsed as millions of human crew members awakened from their long vigil. "The watch ends," Admiral Chen announced, her words carried to every corner of civilized space. "The hunt begins." On 1,000 worlds, alarms sounded as civilizations mobilized for the greatest conflict in galactic history. The silence was finally broken. Humanity had returned not as refugees or conquerors, but as the guardians they had always been. The real war was about to begin.